Weekdays, 1 to 3 p.m. Only on Newstalk Sauga 960.
Afternoon Delight.
Raw Mike Richards, weekdays on Newstalk Sauga 960. And now, from the Bell Lifestyle Studio, here's Mike.
It is 8:40. Newstalk Sauga 960. Raw Mike Richards, as we bring it home on pretty, in terms of temperature-wise, is actually reasonable. This is actually a situation where you don't go outside and die. That's probably another book. And we're going to talk books in just a moment here. I believe we will be getting a hold of C.S. Porter very shortly. In that, of course, Chris from The Idea Shop, this will be the first time in the new year. That's kind of weird that we're still doing this. But that's sort of how this month, let's face it, it's kind of how life is right now. Like whatever you thought was the norm is not. Almost anything that you can think of that you would do on a regular basis, I don't know, like seeing family or shopping. Remember shopping without a mask? Shopping without a mask. I used to, look, and I like shopping. I know, as a heterosexual male, that's a weird thing to say out loud, but it's true. I enjoy shopping of all kinds. I never get bored. One of my favorite dates, not that I'm dating now, because that would be wrong, of course, and frowned upon. But one of my favorite things in the afternoon, going down to the city, shopping with a woman, shopping for clothes. Because I got to tell you, the ending was always good. Can I say that? That was in my book. Which, by the way, I don't believe was a bestseller. I'd have to take a look, but I don't. I have these great ideas. No one listens. Who has great ideas is Chris from The Idea Shop. And I got to tell you, like the authors that join us, I'm almost a little embarrassed because they are just so fantastic. And the books that these Canadian authors, I mean, it just seems to be how Canadians are. We're humble, self-deprecating, and yet you go around the world. Who are the funniest comedians? Who are the greatest comedic actors? Who are the greatest musicians? Like this talent that we have is brilliant. It's a brilliant light, and yet to ourselves, it's just something we don't talk about. But authors in the literary world. And we just, on this show, Chris brings more of them. And I got to be honest, C.S. Porter's going to join us in a second here. And all you have to do is read that review of Beneath Her Skin from the Globe. And this is going to be another home run. So first of all, we'll bring on Chris from The Idea Shop. Good morning, Chris. Thanks for joining us for the first time in the new year.
Good morning, Mike. Happy New Year. And you know what? On the story of your own book, it's lifetime sales that make a bestseller. It's not. There's still time. There's always time.
There's always time. Okay. All right.
And it's true. It's true what you say. Canadians have such great contributions to make to the arts, and I get asked all the time. What is it that's different about Canadian art of any kind? As you said, music, painting, and writing. I mean, we sit in cold weather indoors, and we need to keep our minds and brains occupied because there's not always a lady to go shopping with downtown. So we like nothing better than to start our cold year off with a great thriller. And a friend recommended a great new book, Beneath Her Skin. It's published by Vagrant Press. They're the fiction imprint of Nimbus Publishing, and you're right, they're East Coast. They're the largest English language publisher east of Toronto, and it's the first novel by C.S. Porter, and the Globe and Mail reviewed it this past weekend and called it a tough, carefully constructed mystery with a great setting, a great female detective, a sure winner. And as a sure winner, we're thrilled today to have with us C.S. Porter is here with us today. Welcome, C.S.
Good morning, everybody. Hi.
Well, we can refer to you as Christopher, so that part's not a mystery. This part we can do. This part we can say. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this show. And as I said, we have these authors, and they come out of the gate like ferociously with this buzz. And this book certainly has earned all that. And so people always want to know, certainly for the authors that join us, they always wonder, especially if it's subject matter that's like, well, geez, the guy wrote about a serial killer. What's his deal? But we love it, though, Christopher. It's one of the things that, if you look at anything that is popular, we are fascinated with with like, what is it? What is it? The process of the mind of the killer? Is it rippling effects on communities and families? Like, why are we fascinated by this subject?
I think we're fascinated by a lot of subjects that are underneath ourselves, things that are down at the bottom of society, if you will. I don't know. It just happens, doesn't it? That we're interested in something that we could never do,
Well, and maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's just below the surface, but maybe not far enough where it's not something that we haven't thought of. I'll be honest. And I love the FBI profiling books, and I've read most of them, and I love that stuff. So that's why when Dexter came out, I kind of snickered a little bit because so he's the good serial killer. There's some sort of switch that allows him to only get the bad guys. They're the Robin Hood of serial killing. But you can see why people would think that's kind of okay. That you can see why people want to have this safety valve on what is really truly a dark subject. But maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's not that far away from our own thinking.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, it's not that far away from mine. Let's get that out of the way.
There's people you don't like very much, right?
So how do you?
It is interesting that what goes on around us. I mean, it's just fascinating and it's frightening, to be honest with you. I mean, there's big things moving in and around us. I mean, governments do it all the time. They're pretty nasty.
Well, Christopher, one of the things that I really liked about Beneath Her Skin is the small town setting. There's nothing scarier. Mike's talking about all these creepy, dark things that are going on in our subconscious, and they're actually all happening in small towns. I love small towns. They're great. They're walkable. There's, you feel like there's good people there. They usually have great food. But there's also this, famous adage, small town, big secrets. and Beneath Her Skin really has a bit of that. How important for you as a writer was the setting of the book? How did you elect to put it where it was?
I think it's a really boring answer to that, actually. I live here. I live in a small town, so I just I like the area, and it was a great. It's a really interesting place and a beautiful setting. So I use that and built on top of it.
Well, I guess it's the reason. I mean, if there's going to be something from Stephen King, I almost immediately know where that's going to take place. And again, I think he finds that, just behind the facade of the Norman Rockwell, picture that is painted, and certainly in New England towns and so on, that to have something that dark and evil behind it is sort of the attraction to it. But you've also gone further in that, it's a female detective. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to what you have written. As you're writing this, and people always wonder about the process. How about the process of the story? Like, is it something that you have pieces in your mind you sort of put together after years? Like, where does the story actually come from for you?
I'm a photographer, and when I make images, I like to have stories inside the images. For example, I can photograph a hay bale and then, well, no, that's too easy. But it lends up situations, and I tried to write the book through what I see and what I put together, and then I create a story, and then Cass just came to me one day. She just completely arrived.
And how far detailed or fleshed out was this image of her?
Her name was Kika originally, and that was too soft for her, but I liked the hard K, so she became Kess. She was pretty complete right off the bat. And then it was asking people, doing a bit of research, and having readers come back with yes, you're on the right track or not, She came pretty complete.
I fell in love with Kess. Kess was the kind of person that, you're happy to go along for the ride with. She's a big city detective. She gets called into this small town. So she brings big city attitude a little bit with her, but she's got to rally the troops. She's got to rally all the small town police together. And I love that aspect of the book. She has to win their trust. So one of the great things about the book is as she's winning their trust, she's winning my trust too. you've created a really compelling character here. The book says a Kess Morris file. Beneath her skin, a Kess Morris file. So the question is, are there more files? Is there more to come from this great character?
There aren't yet, but there's she lingers for sure. We're thinking about it and we're working on it. It's a funny thing about murder mystery people. They need more than one somehow. There's series all the way through this genre, isn't there?
Well, I think it's why, when they did Misery, when she was the biggest fan, trust me, she needed more of those books. Too bad James Caan didn't realize that before he went up the snowbank. But it is. And again, this, when I look at the East Coast, for instance, so my family background way back is Irish, so Irish people. So it's always storytelling. When you go out east, it's when you start from Newfoundland in, that it's predominant that there's a lot of that in the culture where storytelling just happens to be that thing. So it almost seems like a natural that if you're from that area, you're good at storytelling.
I don't know about that, but the old people are much better than I am. But the interesting thing is with the stories you hear, it's always the really horrible stories that are the most told. Like, can you believe that? I mean, I still hear stories about rum running here.
Really?
Oh yeah, fascinating stories. Actually, it just doesn't end.
Well, and that is the thing. It's like people say, "What's an Irish story?" I said, "Well, if you're asking about an Irish story from an Irish person, they always end terrible. It wouldn't matter what the subject matter was. If it's from Ireland, it's like you could say, to someone from Ireland, said, "Well, I just had I really like pickles. Pickles, is it? Let me tell you a story about pickles." And then it's just something awful about Flanagan and Murphy. Next thing you know, the pickle was in his eye and his family died in front of him. That's your pickles. I'm like, well, didn't see that coming. But it's true. It is kind of the bad ones, isn't it, Chris?
It's very interesting. It's never about the person that saved pickles.
You really nailed it here, Mike. One of the things about storytelling is back before Wi-Fi, internet, even the printed word, stories would be passed along verbally by people like me and you talking and telling the story, and Christopher as well. And it was really only the gnarly stuff. If you had a 4-hour walk home because there was no bus in those days, you'd really only remember the gnarly stuff. By the time you got home, Mike was telling me a story about a pickle that poked out someone's eye. That's what I remember of the night, the whole night. And so this gets passed on. And, I think the comparison to Christopher's book to Stephen King is an apt one. I drove to Bangor, Maine, where I went to Stephen King's house, not to get too into it, and drove around the neighborhood. And every aspect from his novels was there. The sewer grate, and the movie theater and all these little bits, and they're all within striking distance of his home.
So you're a bit of a stalker.
A little bit, See, I'm dressed all in black, the glasses, it's like Clark Kent. I take the glasses off. It's a different thing. But, I have a feeling, Mike, if we drive to Christopher's, hometown, we might actually see some of the settings from Beneath Her Skin. It's got that. The lobsters at one point, not to give too much away, but Christopher, he seems like a nice guy, but he's come up with some really dark ways to put people in. The lobsters are the bad guys kind of at one point. Lobsters. I mean, what makes you, Christopher, are you prone to thinking of difficult ways for people to perish? Have you heard a lot of Irish folk tales? Are you, how does that come into play?
It started out kind of as fun for me, the killings, I mean, they were a lark for me. And then they got serious when Kess was introduced into the thing. And then what could have been funny became just horrible. And so I left it at that because it worked.
Yeah. And that's, again, this book I'm sure will be incredibly successful. It's nice to see as they say, a debut come out of the gate like that. And when we're able to talk to people like yourselves, what you realize is that the people who write these incredible stories that somehow can go to really dark places, but they're your next door neighbor. You would never know. Your next door neighbor in that small town would have had no idea of what's going to come on those pages. And that's the brilliant part of the creativity. Something I'm afraid, Christopher, to a degree, with gaming and Game Boy and video games and the YouTube.
Yeah.
I think we're losing it. And I just wonder, some point, are we going to have this kind of creativity in our writing?
Always. It's essential to the human spirit. I'm sure of it. Yeah, always.
I certainly hope so. Well, thank you so much for joining us here this morning. It is, as I said, just thrilling to have folks like yourself on here. And I can't wait to read it. As I said, I usually have to fight.
Yes.
The problem is when it arrives at the house, from
Someone gets it
voracious readers, and so I get the book like weeks later, but the pages are all turned down because they've read the thing, they've talked to their friends about it, and this will be one of those. So eventually I'll get to read it. But best of luck with the book, and should there be another one, we would love to talk to you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
That is
Have a
C.S.
good
Porter, and of course Chris Houston, Chris from The Idea Shop, another home run as always. What else would you expect?